Attention, functional fitness athletes or barbell athletes, every time you work out, your body is telling you secrets that you can use to then improve your performance. That's right, your body is telling you no evals, no money needs to be spent. Your body's telling you what needs to be done. This series is going to give you an insight to those little tips that your body's already telling you. You're reaching down, trying to pet those dogs, but you're not able to reach your toes. What is creating that? Is it truly tight hamstrings that's restricting you from being able to touch those toes? You're gonna find out in this video. The first thing to look at when we're looking at hamstring length or the inability to touch your toes, is it really due to the hamstrings? We have to look up at the pelvis, because if you're walking around with this anterior pelvic tilt, sticking the butt out, keeping this arch back position as you're going around, that is going to lengthen your hamstrings because they attach to the ischial tuberosity. This anterior pelvic tilt is pulling the hamstring up further. So if you're in this anterior pelvic tilt, you're already lengthening your hamstrings. This doesn't mean that your hamstrings are tight or need mobility. It means you need better control of what's happening at your pelvic girdle. What you want to do is sit into a posterior pelvic tilt, just getting out of this position, tucking the tail underneath you. You do not need to stay in that position long term. It's just showing your body that there's other options than being here, that you can get to here. That'll help to decrease the length on the hamstrings, which allows you to do a better hip hinge and then get down to those toes down at the bottom there. We talked on pelvic position. We don't want to spend unnecessary time stretching our hamstrings when they really might not need length to begin with. This test here is going to help you identify, do you truly need passive lengthening of your hamstring muscles, or do you need more stability work of that pelvic girdle in the lower core? So what we're going to do with Brandy here is a passive straight leg raise. You're going to want a friend for this one, or you can hook a belt around your foot to do it. But what we want to do is I'm lifting the leg for Brandy to see how far can this hamstring go up. I've worked with performing artists and actors, actresses on tours that they claim their hamstrings feel tight, but their knee can touch their head. In that case, your hamstring is not tight, because what we're looking for is about 90 degrees. If you can get to 90 degrees, we cannot conclude that your hamstring is tight. So that was a passive straight leg raise, looking at that posterior length of the hamstring. Now what we're gonna do is have Brandy actively lift her leg coming up, and we're gonna see, does she get to near that? We can have about a 10-degree differential between active and passive, but if Brandy gets to about here actively, and then passively she can get to here, this is not a hamstring length issue. This is more of something that's happening down here in the lower core and the pelvic girdle. Another way that we can test this, Brandy, make an X for me. She can push down into my arms, go ahead and lift that leg up. If she is able to lift this higher with that core activation, that will further identify that this is a core issue that is disguising itself as hamstring tightness. She would not need hamstring stretching for that. She would need work of that lower core. We talked on pelvic position, we talked on hamstring length. How do we know if it's actually the hamstring length versus the core? The last thing that we're going to add into this section is neural tension, because the sciatic nerve comes out of the lower spine, wraps down the back of the leg, down the back of the calf, down to the bottom of the feet, where it becomes the medial lateral plantar nerve, then the tibial nerve, and then the sciatic nerve, through the thigh, all the way up to the spine. So we want to see, is it the nerve that is under tension that's given the perception of a tight hamstring? So to do that, we're going to go on our back. We're going to go back into that straight leg raise position. Because that nerve travels all the way down to the bottom of the feet, if we go into dorsiflexion or bring the toes towards the head, this is going to put more tension on the sciatic nerve. So what we can see, I put tension on the nerve. Let's see where we get to. And now if I take tension off of that nerve and we get a lot further, that is signifying it's neural tension. Because the sciatic nerve also comes out of the spinal cord, which goes up to the top of the head, we can have Brandy flex her neck and put the head in different positions. So if we go here and then bring this leg up with a little bit of tension there, this nerve is maximally tense now. So maybe here we just floss this nerve a little bit, point the toe down, bring it back, point the toe down, bring it back, point the toe down, bring it back, rest your head down. If we get further motion after doing that, that is signifying that it's the sciatic nerve that is having some neural tension. What creates neural tension can be a lot of different things. It can be stress, it can be your internal load. If it is your internal load, we need to decrease that. You can find strategies in this book here, Hope Not Nope, how to decrease your internal load to get rid of some of this neural tension. The other part is just flossing it. Think of a piece of floss, plaque between your teeth. You slide this back and forth, it gets the plaque out. whether it might be things through this lower leg that's just getting in the way of the nerve sliding back and forth. Use that flossing technique, get that out of there, let that nerve travel. Nerves love blood, movement, and space. Give them those three things and they'll be really happy. That'll help you to improve your hamstring length, because it's not really your hamstring length, very quick. This one does not take long to do. It's very short. You should have a almost immediate response from doing this if it is neural tension. We talked about pelvic position. We talked about neural tension. We talked about hamstring length. What's the missing factor? The missing factor might be strength. When muscles become deconditioned or weak, they give the perception of feeling like they're weak. So we're going to test the hamstrings in all different types of contractions. We're going to look at isometric endurance. We're going to look at isometric force output. We're going to look at concentric. We're going to look at eccentric to make sure we're getting a whole profile on this hamstring muscle group. First, we're going to look at single leg bridge endurance test. Brandy is on the ground, foot up on the box. Go ahead and bring this one up. She's going to cross her arms. She's going to give herself a hug. If you're doing this at home, hug yourself. Give yourself a little bit of love, because this test, it kind of sucks. It hurts a little bit. So love yourself before it. You're going to go ahead and lift your hips up. You're going to hold this position as long as you can. Why are we having the arms crossed? So that you cannot use your elbows in the floor to give yourself further stability. This is really making that hamstring work hard. Don't know if you can see it on the film, but Brandy is shaking, holding this position. You may have a hamstring cramp that comes on. You get to decide, do you want to use that cramp to help you hold this? Or is it time to bow out because that cramp is bothering you? We're going to hold this. We're looking to make sure the hips are equal across. One side's not dipping lower than the other side. If the hips start to sag or we start to get an unequal level of the hips, we're going to drop down and stop the timer, rush break, and then we'll repeat this on the other side. Overall, we want to have a less than a 10% difference side to side for the length that you can hold this position with good integrity. In this one, we're looking at eccentric hamstring strength. There's Nordic hamstring curls, Roman chair exercises that you can do. And those are great exercises, but maybe you don't have access to those types of things. So we're going to show you one of the best eccentric hamstring exercises that you can do at home. We have a furniture slider and a just piece of turf on the floor so that this can slide on it. If you don't have the furniture slider, no worries. You can use a washcloth on your wooden floor at home. You can even clean it at the same time. Throw down some floor cleaner, maybe some Dawn, other things that clean your floor. Put the washcloth down and you can slide your foot on the washcloth on that. Two birds, one stone, clean, and you're getting fit, taking care of those hamstrings. So we want to make sure that we have good eccentric lengthening of the hamstrings. If your hamstrings are tight, aside from stretching them, this is the best way to actually lengthen and strengthen at the same time. So what does this movement look like? Granny has her working foot down on that slider or on the washcloth. The other foot's going to come up. She's going to hold this in that 90-degree position. Arms are folded again so that the hamstring has to work harder so that she's not pushing her elbows into the floor to create stability. Brandy's going to go up into a bridge. Once those hips are up, she's going to slide this foot out, not let her hips fall. Once it gets to the bottom, she's going to drop down and then bring the slider back. Let's go again. Hips up, slide out. Don't let the hips go down. Hold that there a little bit. Down. Now drop down, slide that slider back. We're going to see how many of those reps Brandy can do on her left side. Take a little bit of a rest break, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever you need to recover. And then we're going to do it on the other side. Right foot down, left foot up. Hips are going to come up high, arms are folded, slide out. Good. That finishes the eccentric. Drop down, slide it on back, because we are only looking at the eccentric part of the contraction. And again, the research shows that this is one of the best hamstring exercises that you can be doing at home. We are now going to look at the isometric force output of the hamstring groups using this special tool right here. Traditionally, what you've probably seen is someone lifting the leg up, someone pushing on it and saying, that's a 4 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5. Well, we can get more objective and put a better number to it. So we have an idea, what is our hamstring force output side versus side and overall? Because again, what feels like a tight hamstring may actually be a weak or deconditioned hamstring. What we're using is a crane scale. You may have used this at home to measure your suitcase or your baggage before going on a flight. We're going to use it in an intuitive way to get a number on the muscle, on the output that it's getting. We can do it in newtons, we can do it in pounds, we can do it in kilograms. Doesn't matter. You get to pick. I'm feeling like we're going to use pounds today, so let's use pounds. I'm going to turn on the crane scale. We're going to make sure that it's balanced here at 0. You can see I just have it hooked against the rig and then around her ankle. Brandon's gonna do a hamstring curl, pulling into this thing as hard as she can. Pull, 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 pull. And then we're gonna get the top number. So we got about 14.86 pounds. Let's do one more. Ready? And pull. Pull that thing, pull it, up to 20. Nice job on that. Give yourself a few attempts. The number may increase as that muscle warms up a little bit more. Give yourself appropriate rest breaks between the reps. We just did the left side. We would repeat that on the right side and see what is the peak force output that these hamstrings are giving out. Why did we go to 90 degrees? Most muscles are going to be strongest here at their mid-length compared to being shorter or longer. Right here, we get a really good force output, but you can change it depending on the results and the outcomes that you want to see. If you want to get a little bit higher, you can test it there. If you want to go a little bit lower, you can get it there. A little bit lower, you might see a little bit more distal hamstring work. Up higher, you might see a little bit more proximal hamstring work. So if you're coming off a hamstring injury, you might play around with that a little bit to get the different data in those different positions. One's not right, one's not wrong. It just depends on what is the information that you want to give to improve your performance. One of the most common complaints we hear from our clients is that my hamstrings are tight. I can't reach over and pet my dogs. All right, they don't really say that second part, but I wish that they did. In any case, everyone will need differing hamstring lengths, and not everyone needs to be able to reach over and touch their toes. If you're a performing artist, you need more hamstring flexibility than others. If you're a runner, the tight hamstrings may actually give you an advantage in running. But if your hamstrings feel tight, we need to further investigate, because tightness perception can be from muscle length, neural tension, or deconditioning of the hamstrings. Once you assess, you can then choose the best methods to decrease that perception of tightness, whether that be pelvic position, decreasing neural tension with nerve glides, or decreasing your internal load, and then lastly, strengthening. Hoping you are enjoying the content. Stick around, because at the end of this video, we will show you one of the best hamstring exercises that people are not talking about. If you are enjoying this content, share it with a friend, leave us a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our new content coming out. All right, I'm a man of my word. Bonus exercise coming up next. What's one of the best hamstring exercises that people aren't talking about enough? A lot of these research studies will show that doing things like a Nordic curl or eccentric slider, you're getting up to 60 to 70% of a max voluntary contraction. But what can get 100% of that contraction and has so many benefits in it? It is sprinting. When is the last time that you went and you ran as fast as you could for a really short distance? This is one of the best hamstring, one of the best full body exercises available. You want to build yourself up to have good strength before you go for the sprint. But then once you're able to tolerate sprinting, make sure that you are not missing out on this super, super important exercise.